Charles Leclerc finally won at his home Grand Prix, and albeit a boring race, it still showed that Ferrari are more than ready to challenge Red Bull and McLaren. But the good news won't stop for the Scuderia, as new upgrades are scheduled that will take the fight even further to the Milton Keynes squad. And because of that, it's very likely that the Italian team will win more races this year. If it weren't for the sentimental importance of this venue, it could be described as an easy victory for Leclerc. His Ferrari was unchallenged in the 76 laps after the restart, which saw hardly any stops. The closest challenger, Oscar Piastri, lost 10 points of aerodynamic load due to the contact with Sainz. Ultimately, this was irrelevant anyway, as the field lapped 3 seconds slower than it was capable of. The pace management decided by Leclerc hid far greater potential. His SF24 could have gone significantly faster. The Monegasque could only fight to preserve the hard compound to the point of boredom as insurance against unexpected events. Brian Bozzi didn't use diplomacy to convince him. Leclerc's engineers didn't even have minor fears about reliability. The decision to replace his power unit in FP3 was entirely a precaution. The Ferrari was reassembled in the race and completed its job. Ferrari's current power units have reached a life cycle of 8,000 kilometers. The slow pace of the race eliminated any potential risk. The only strategic unknown in Monaco, the undercut, disappeared. Ferrari's only concern in a fight with McLaren was to prevent Norris from having a pit stop window to Russell. Leclerc controlled the race, and Sainz played his role. The two perfectly executed the established plan, limiting Piastri's options. The chasing group was made up of Verstappen and the two Mercedes, who were in a race of their own. For the Dutchman and Red Bull, it was a difficult weekend. However, at least his Monaco GP wasn't as bad as Perez's, whose crash cost Red Bull about 2 or 3 million in damages, according to Helmut Marko. This is a significant hit to the team's finances under the spending limit. Ferrari is confident in its strategy. The aim of winning the World Championship is not limited to the 2026 Formula One season, when new regulations will be introduced. In Maranello, there is a strong drive to stay ahead. Charles Leclerc's victory on the streets of Monte Carlo in Monaco has invigorated a team unified under its team principal, Frédéric Vasseur. The Frenchman has cultivated a cohesive team with a shared vision, unveiling a potential long hidden within the Ferrari racing division. During the Imola weekend, Vasseur outlined that the Scuderia's efforts are advancing on 3 parallel tracks, each with its own timeline. From an external perspective, setting priorities is challenging, but the objectives are clearly differentiated. Vasseur acknowledged the difficulty in quantifying progress. One part of the Maranello team is focused on updating the current Formula One season's SF24 single-seater. Another segment is working on next year's car, and efforts on the 2025 model are already underway. Additionally, work on the 2026 power unit has been ongoing, though concepts for the chassis and aerodynamics remain speculative due to pending regulations. The new SF24 aerodynamic package is set to debut during the Silverstone weekend at the British Grand Prix, earlier than its original schedule for the Hungarian round, reflecting Ferrari's determination to accelerate development. Additionally, 2 more rear-wing variants will follow the high-load version introduced last weekend in Monaco. A reduced downforce version will debut at the Canadian Grand Prix at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with an intermediate version set for the Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. There is also optimism in the Ferrari camp heading into Montreal. Canada is almost the opposite of Monaco in terms of speed and downforce, but there are curbs, slow corners and chicanes, some traits similar to Monaco. We did well in Melbourne, Imola, Miami, and there were differences in terms of layout, compound, asphalt. It will be tight for everyone, with differences of 1/10 and a half, revealed the Ferrari team principal. These are the immediate plans, but Italian aerodynamicist Enrico Cardilli, Ferrari's technical director of chassis and aerodynamics, has tasked a team of engineers with mapping out the development of the SF25. Initially, it was suggested that next year's car would be an evolution of the SF24, with most resources directed towards the 2026 Formula One car, which will start development on January 1st, with input from Loic Serra, the former Mercedes engineer, joining Maranello in October. However, recent developments indicate a shift from this plan. Frederic Vasseur has approved a comprehensive redesign of next year's chassis. By Barcelona, the engineers expect to fully understand Ferrari SF24 2.0. As it stands, the next aerodynamic package is expected around Silverstone, intended to generate more qualifying efficiency. Vasseur had discussed the impacts of this package. Last year we were competitive in qualifying and we had to suffer in the race. We suffered in some corners and less in others, and we worked on all these weaknesses and took a step forward, which perhaps compromised us a little in qualifying, but it gave us many other benefits. In addition to this big update, we can expect the gradual introduction of smaller ones. The work doesn't stop. Part of the team moves to France for the Pirelli tests. Later in June, there will be more activity in Maranello. The Pirelli test at Paul Ricard will focus on the new 2025 Pirelli compounds. Carlos Sainz will take day one's duties. On Wednesday, it was Leclerc's turn. He drove on a 3.523-kilometer version of the circuit, which was artificially wet thanks to the track's irrigation system. This allowed for testing both the full wet tyres, Pirelli's top priority, and the intermediate tyres. In recent years, drivers have complained that the heavy wet compound does not perform as well as the intermediate, so Pirelli, despite its infrequent use, decided to continue its development. Ferrari will also run tests with the 2022 car, the F175, at Mugello, permitted by the regulations without mileage restrictions. Part of the Maranello team is focused on the next updates for the SF24 single-seater during the current Formula One season, while another segment is already working on next year's car. Ferrari's technicians have also started on the 2025 car. Additionally, work on the 2026 power unit has been underway for some time. However, they can only hypothesize concepts for the chassis and aerodynamics, as the regulations are not yet fully in place. The next SF24 aerodynamic package is scheduled for the Silverstone weekend at the British Grand Prix, moved up from its original plan for the Hungarian round. Ferrari seems determined to accelerate its development. Meanwhile, two more rear wings will appear after the one that debuted last week in Monaco. A lower downforce version will be seen in the upcoming Canadian Grand Prix at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, while an intermediate version will appear at the Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. A third of the way into the 2024 season, Charles Leclerc trails Max Verstappen by just 31 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari and Red Bull are even closer, with only 24 points separating Ferrari from the leaders. While Red Bull has struggled with development this year, Ferrari has made significant strides with its upgrades. If this trend continues, Ferrari and Leclerc could challenge Verstappen and Red Bull for the championship lead and ultimately the title. However, if Christian Horner and his team at Red Bull find their footing and Ferrari maintains its current trajectory, the battle for the championship is guaranteed to be fierce until the season's end. Ferrari is currently battling on two fronts, challenging Red Bull and keeping an eye on McLaren, who are also emerging as a significant threat for the remaining 16 races of the 2024 season. Ferrari can expect fierce competition from Verstappen and both McLaren drivers week in and week out. However, with Red Bull facing issues, circuits like Montreal and Singapore, which require aggressive handling of bumps and curbs, might not suit the RB20's design. Ferrari's recent upgrades have addressed their weakness in high-speed corners, adding 15 points of downforce and making them competitive across various tracks. Leclerc must deliver flawless performances, like his drive in Monaco, every weekend. With zero mistakes and a perfect strategy, he stands a strong chance of defeating Verstappen and clinching his first ever F1 World Championship, especially with how Red Bull might have to cut on its upgrades if more damage comes to either of its two cars. Then we will definitely have an open battle for the title. Leclerc looks ready, and the Ferrari car is great this year, and despite the fact that McLaren is in the fold as well, if I were to bet on a world champion rather than Max Verstappen this year, the number one choice would definitely be the Monegasque driver. But let's wait and see, as nothing is certain in the world of Formula One. What do you think? Will Ferrari manage to catch Red Bull this year and take at least the Constructors' title away from them? Let us know down in the comments below, and we'll catch you next time.